vibes, man. It's always a pleasure to be around you, Nate.
Wow, thank you. I'm blushing. Thanks, man. It's good to finally see you and talk to you, even though it's not in person. But I'm happy to finally, like I said, man, kind of get.
Yeah, and that's the start of the show. I'm Howie Howard from Mr. Furious Records. This is the Long Play Listening Party. That's my co-host, Nate Holt. And our guest this week, for the next month, actually, it's Ebony Simon month on the Long Play Listening Party. Guest Ebony, you may know him as Lefty Grove from the hip hop, or producer Guinness. But yeah, we're going to listen to a couple records and have some fun.
I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and get started. I threw myself off with not doing my usual intro, but so tiny intro. We're gonna listen to my new sampler-based album. I don't know what else to call it. It's called Frog on the King's Head. I put it out under my MS Ride. That's all my solo whatever. And it's available right now at mrfuriousrecords.bandcamp.com.
Can I ask a question, Howie?
You absolutely can. And I want to ask Ebony a question too, because he's heard it, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
MS. What's that indicate?
It's a little ambiguous. It reminds me of the MS-20, my favorite synthesizer.
Okay, I can get that.
It's
mid-side compression.
There's a mid-side, which could be compression
EQ or mid-side whatever.
Mid-side anything in audio recording. It's the abbreviation for Ms. So there's like a tiny little gender bending element interpretation to it that's possible.
I like that.
It can mean a lot of things.
I mean, that's a question I was going to ask as well.
Okay, cool.
So that's pretty cool.
I'm glad we got it out of the way. I'm going to kick things off with Cold Fusion.
Old heads.
And, I mean, to get us started, Ebony, I just wanted to ask, so I'm going to say kind of what genre I think this is, but before I do, I kind of want to hear if you had to put this in a genre, this album, what would you put it in?
The album or song by song?
The album, overall.
I would put it under, if I was putting this on, digitally, on Apple Music.
Yeah.
I think the first thing I would put it under is electronic.
Okay.
But then when they ask for a subgenre, I would probably put alternative for the first subgenre. And for the second, I would put hip hop.
Okay.
Just because it kind of, there's a very broad spectrum of music that you do on this project. And this particular song, Cold Fusion, the bass line is a lot like what we talked about the last time we talked. It's very Brit-poppy. Just the way it comes off funky, but you can still kind of rock out to it and kind of dance to it at the same time. A la, Franz Ferdinand type stuff in that area of music.
Yeah.
That was the first thing I thought when that bass line came up, because that's I'm a big bass line person.
Mm-hmm.
So if the bass line's funky, I'm gonna rock with it for the most part. And this is just one of those things where when it all came together, I was like, damn, I'm gonna listen to this and I'm gonna nod out and I'm gonna put other people onto this. So it's a good start. It's a good start to the record.
Yeah, well, if the bass line is moving you, then my goal in life is accomplished. This song started with the bass line. It was all about the bass line, and just everything else is just reasons to keep the bass line going for 4 minutes,
Yeah.
And before I get too far, though, I would not put this on Apple Music for the genre or anything, but when I finished the record and was thinking about, what am I going to call it? What I call it in my own brain is actually trip hop, because it's a real massive attack, sort of producer forward, pull in whatever vocals you need, no rules kind of thing. And I know I'm not saying that to a lot of people because it on the surface it's very different from that.
Yeah.
But that's where I think it sort of lives spiritually.
I can see that too. The drums definitely give it that feel. Like, that's the one thing that, especially about trip hop, the thing that I noticed about trip hop is that they really do their thing with like the drums. The samples are there, but the drums carry everything in trip hop. So I get where you're coming from on that too. I never would have thought of that without like another point of view on it, you know, especially from like the person who made the music. So
yeah, but with your producer brain, I knew you're like the one of the few people who I knew would get that when I said it.
Yeah. It's not like the hardcore trip hop, but it is definitely like the laid back, calming. You don't necessarily need lyrics over this level of trip hop.
So let's go back to Funkatron. Does anybody know what video game this is referencing?
Get in, nerds. We're going back to Funkatron.
I'll take that as a no. This is Toe Jam and Earl.
All right.
Oh my god. That's one of the few games I never really got into, so I don't.
Toe Jam and Earl were on a mission to get back to their home planet of Funkatron.
Huh.
So like I cut you off, Nate. You had a question.
Get in, nerds. We're going back to Funkatron.
I was just we were talking about the trip hop, like the laid back trip hop, and I was thinking of like Portishead or I don't know, Sneaker Pimps. Would that consider that in that genre somewhere?
Yeah.
Yeah.
07 technically.
Yes. 07, I think, is maybe what I was trying to look for. But yeah, that's it. We're not gonna. We're moving forward.
I think and also like on a side note for that, I think that 07 is one of the most underrated groups in trip hop because Portishead did everything so well that people just forgot about the rest of these groups, and like the whole genre got kind of left behind because Portishead did Portishead and Dummy, and like in a 3-year span they just basically perfected the style and then kind of killed it. So like all these other groups that came out were just kind of sidebars, you know, Asteroid Galaxy
Just
Club.
scorched
like,
earth, like no one else can do this like us.
Never expected that to happen.
Right.
But this one, I
good though.
Yeah, I have no recollection of Toe Jam and Earl as like a game. So this one was just nice and funky.
What platform?
Get in, nerds. We're going
I played it on my friend Nick King's Sega Genesis.
Was that about the era?
That's the era. Mid-90s, maybe 96, 97, something like that.
I mean, I feel like I've heard the word spoken, Toe Jam and Earl, but I don't remember any sort of video game or anything.
You basically wander around and collect items to reassemble your spaceship. It's very chill. It's a very laid-back game.
No, I probably would have liked it.
Sounds like something I would have been into.
Probably so. Maybe Zelda-ish. You know, you're on a mission.
Yeah. There's a connection to Zelda for sure.
I was also gonna.
All into Zelda. And some of the Sonic. Sorry, Ebony. Some of the Sonic, the textures in this one sort of, or reference back to.
Yeah, that's totally it. So the main sample here comes off the Medusa synthesizer, and totally the end of that line kind of sounded like Mario coins to me. So that just got my brain going for video games and as far as what to do with the vocals. All right, Ebony, what's up?
I was gonna say, like, a side note on this particular song is that the synth bass is very, very like underground West Coast rap. Very not necessarily like the bigger producers like the Dre's or anything like that, but I'm talking about like the Fred Rex and the Battle Cats and the Dame Funks and like those guys, like the guys that like the rappers favorite rapper kind of producers.
Cool.
There's a lot of West Coast production from like the early '90s that kind of sounds like this, because they were really big into the synth sounds that EPMD was putting out. So that's kind of like the basis for it, and that kind of that's what this song kind of reminded me of.
Awesome. I'll take that all day long. I don't remember anything about the patch. I do remember when I came up with the idea, I didn't have a great way to demo it. I was tapping it out on the Medusa's pad, which is not laid out like a normal keyboard. It's an 8x8 pad.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know what piano notes it was. I only knew the pattern of the squares on the pad, and I didn't want to forget. And so I had my headphones plugged into the synth, and I just stuffed my iPad into the headphones and played and recorded like a voice memo. So there's this very thin, like tinny demo of this riff that then I recreated and sequenced up and everything. But the demo was really rough.
Had you mentioned this one before in some, maybe on another show or a conversation we had or something, I think?
Back to Funkatron?
No, the way that you created it. Like you had to recreate, well, I mean, it's kind of your MO though. I think there's been a couple times you were like, yeah, I came up with something, but I couldn't remember it or something, so I just kind of had to go back and redo it manually.
Probably, yeah. I forget stuff if I don't capture it in the moment, it's gone. So I do a lot of voice memos and like quick and dirty iPad recordings and just whatever to get. It can be super rough, and that will trigger my memory, and I'll be able to get back to the original idea and feeling. But if I don't get something down in the moment, it's usually lost.
I'm the exact same way. I am literally the exact same way. And to the point where some of the beats that I've even made have been beats that I've started and then got busy doing something else, came back to it and had to scrap it and start it all over again, and ended up making something different out of the exact same things. Because like once I get into a zone mode, I want to get it done so that way I don't have to worry about it. But if something happens or I get started late or something happens where I have to stop, then I always come back and either scrap it or just start it all the way back over again and re-chop it. So,
yep.
Man, it's so like, I don't know, especially as of late, and maybe, I'm hoping that it's just kind of something that, developed just out of, because I feel like I've been more consistently just like playing and listening and everything, but just I'll wake up in the day and I'll have throughout the day I'll have like 4 or 5 or 6 just like different melodies or chord changes and ideas that they're just like they're fleeting. I'm like, man, if I had a clone that could just like record all those ideas every day that I'm like think in my head, like I'd have like a backlog of all these different types of songs and stuff.
Do you capture them in any way?
Occasionally I will voice memo, and I've worked off of that a little bit, but it's like, man, I just want to go in and like just record these songs or record these melodies, record this verse or this chorus, that I'm thinking, and that's the way it goes. But
yeah,
Ebony, I'm like you. Like if I start something, like I might start something with the intention of making it X, but then I come back to it, and then just the path it takes, like this goes to like B. You know what I mean? Like it's just it doesn't end up the way that you want, and that's not a bad thing necessarily, but I definitely feel that for sure.
Yeah, I also have started to notice that I have this weird way of like compartmentalizing in my brain and then just scribbling something down, and then I'll find it like 6 months later on the back of a receipt. And I'll be like, oh, that's that idea I was looking for. And then I try and execute that idea. And it's like, that was a stupid idea, but it was good 6 months ago, like It's cool, but it's frustrating because I know I had something that I wanted to do, but then I just said, let's do something else, you know?
Well, then I'll be working on something, and like, after you hear something so many times, you're just like, and it's like, I was so excited like 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
And I wish I could, and maybe that means it's bad, or maybe it just means like I, won't go too slow, but
yeah, I'm starting to think more like baseball being at bat when it comes to music now than I was about getting hits. Like, in a certain aspect, baseball is a game of failure. So the small victories that you have are the hits and the stolen bases and the home runs and the walks, stuff like that. But it doesn't happen that often, like, what is it? Barry Bonds has hit 755 home runs, but he played for 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a small
I like
victories.
that, man. That's really good. I like that.
The highest batting average in the Baseball Hall of Fame is Ty Cobb at 367. Think about that.
36%.
That's 30. Yeah,
or
that's
37%.
It's a failing grade on any test you take. Failing grade on any test you take. So, like, when you think about anything that you do as either something you love or something that you want to do as a career, you definitely have to realize that you're going to have way more failures than successes. So, it's kind of the reason that I don't like to put out full albums when it comes to like music anymore. Because if I give you 5 or 6 songs, you can skip through 3 or 4 of them and I'll be cool with that. But I don't want to give you 12 songs and then have you only listen to like 3 or 4. So how about you take these 5 songs, you like these 5 songs, it's 12 minutes of your time or however long it's going to be. Just take that 12 minutes, give it to me for a moment. Tell your friends to take that moment as well, and then go from there, because people aren't doing albums anymore. And the people that are doing albums, it's a very small niche market for the people who want that. But in a general stance of things, the way the world works, my album will come out on Tuesday. You're going to forget about it by Friday.
Yeah.
But you will have heard it Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. And if it picks up momentum, then maybe you hear it over the weekend, or maybe somebody plays it for you over the weekend. But like, a series of failures with small successes is how I look at music now, instead of like everything's got to be a hit or everything's got to hit and I have to do this and I have to do that. Now I appreciate it more, especially being that I'm very, very isolated away from all of the people, most of the people that I was in collaboration with and doing creative things with in Lawrence and like in that area, Kansas City and whatnot. And now that I'm down here by myself, I have to look at that like, okay, you are the only person that's really motivating you down here. And you don't have all that motivation all of the time. So when you have that motivation, make sure that you use it and create as much as you can, and then go back and sift through it. And what you like is what someone else may like. And if I have the may like part of it down, then you're going to get that music. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a big thing, and a big, it seems like a sort of a thought that I've heard, talked about with other people, and including my own, in my own, creating on my own. It's like the only thing you should really worry about is if you like it, because, and I don't think that I have, some, world-class taste in music. I know what I like. I know what I don't like. I have a pretty objective idea of what is good or not, but that's always, there's always going to be somebody that's like, no, that's trash.
Yeah.
If you like it, if you enjoy it, if you can get into it, then that's how it should be. That if it's something where you're just like, maybe this radio station will play it because it's this, that's probably not going to be something that you're going to be into, and you're probably not going to get a lot of people that are into it either, just because it's not, you don't have you're not behind it.
Yeah, there's no
you're not invested in it.
Nothing good comes from chasing other people's tastes. That's for sure.
Whew,
So,
man.
So
Wish
I
you
wanna
would have told me that 15 years ago.
Well, I wish I could go back and tell myself, but these.
Well,
are
I
the
mean,
things.
that's the thing. It's like, I just said we're old heads, and that's something that I wish I had really kind of taken to heart when I was in my 20s. You know what I mean, or teens even. Like I wish I had told everybody I went to high school with, man, let me do my thing. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Instead of worrying about.
Hopefully, all the Zoomers that listen to the podcast will learn a few years earlier than we did.
Yeah, all this.
I've been waiting. I want to explain this one to you guys because there's a concept behind it. We're going to listen to Time Organ. So the main sample for this is the organ sample that comes from my own song from the Fight Songs album called Time I Would Spend. And this is the first song I did for the record, and it's a weird one. And I gave myself a little mission. So there's this awesome video by a dude called JFilt on the Very Sick Beats channel, where he explains that Dilla would take songs in 6/8 time and flip them into 4/4 in a really, really cool way. And he demonstrates it. And that's a super fun thing to do. I gave myself the challenge of doing the opposite, taking a song in 4/4 and flipping it into 6/8. And this is what happened. It also has the first real improvised guitar solo I've ever put on record is in this song.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask how much of these projects, how many of these did you do instrumentation for?
I mean, almost everything.
From the darkest part
I'm looking through the list now.
of winter.
The horns in Digital Sin are from a song I was on, but I didn't play the horns myself. My friend Scott did that. And then the Nighthawk track is a track that Drew did the drums and the main synthesizers. That will appear on a different project of his someday. And he sent it to me for an overdub, which I did and sent back to him, and that's not something you hear on this project. For this project, when we get to Nighthawk, I started with the original, half, 2/3 finished track that he sent me, and fleshed it out in a different way. But almost everything else is me.
Nice.
Sampling myself and playing instruments. Yep.
It's it's very Al Green produces Tom Waits.
Yes.
Dude, almost want to say there's dare I say there's some Prince sort of
Oh God.
vibe?
Extremely lo-fi. Yeah, I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. I respect Prince too much.
Well, I respect Prince too. I'm not saying that this is a Purple Rain or anything, and it
Good.
shouldn't be. But
Yeah, no, don't say that.
But I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's maybe that.
Let me tell you.
soulful
So
organ in there.
here's
there's
the
a little bit
connection,
of
maybe on the guitar solo
effect.
at least.
Yeah.
Is that the guitar? I feel a lot of emotion in Prince's guitar solos, and I tried to put a lot of emotion and feeling into this one. It's not a lot of notes, and I can't shred or anything, but I tried to find something that conveyed something.
I mean, music is a feeling, and you definitely put a feeling in this one. So that's dope. I think the notes I had was very, very Al Green on the drums. Because if you go back and listen to a song like For the Good Times, it has a lot of that feeling of those drums.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I got the Al Green part of it from.
That's
and then
cool.
everything else I was thinking along the lines of I happened upon a bunch of CDs from a friend of mine that I started to use for sampling, and one of them was David Gray. And
Yeah.
I don't know exactly why that was the first name that came to mind when I heard this song, but this sounds a lot like something that David Gray would have like done and produced as well, in a more not necessarily slicker fashion, but just like polished for his sound type of thing.
Is he the White Ladder album was his big album?
Yeah.
Am I thinking of the right artist? Okay.
But yeah, that's kind of the thought process like that. And on top of that, your mixing skills are very, very immaculate, because nothing sounds out of place. And I know that sounds super weird. Like we know what we're talking about, and when I say that, and a lot of people may not be like as into music as we are, so they might hear me say that and go, is he like dissing him or anything like that? It's like, no, that's not what it is. It's just that like people like us who have spent years in studios and years on stage and years in crowd and keep headphones on generally, like you can tell when somebody has put their time into doing something. And I like the way that you put the sounds together and that you mix these in so nothing is overwhelming. Especially as a person coming from an orchestra background like me, everything has to fit, and it fits in a certain way. And I like the way that you do it on this project. Like the way you produce it and master it, it's pretty solid. So,
yeah, I mean, the longer that Howie and I mean, the show was was born from an album that we had made together.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was just kind of like, hey, you want to mix it, whatever. You mix, I'll master. And as time goes by and I hear the music that Howie puts out, that you put out, Howie, I guess if you're here, I can talk to you.
I'm right here, man.
I'm more and more honored and I guess, that you let me mix that record.
Oh man, you were the right person to mix that for sure. It's only very recently that I've started to feel okay about my mixing. It really started with the Howie and Scott V for Voice record, where I was finally like, okay, the mixing is finally happening, kind of. And then doing it all on the 404 is kind of a different. I haven't even said, so this whole album was produced on the 404 Mark II.
Nice.
Now, I'm not above, if something needs a little processing, I will bounce a stem out, do something in Reaper and bring it back in or whatever. I'm not like a purist, but 95% of everything and all the patterns and grab effects and everything is all 404 Mark II.
That's awesome.
That's super dope. Like I'm still over here trying to figure out how to work this Axiom 25. So I mean, I think I'm doing all right with it, but at the same time, like I feel like I need a lot more work. So like that you could do all of this on one machine and have it come out like this is very impressive, and it gives me motivation to keep learning my instruments. So
I love the 404 workflow. I don't know. It puts me in a different brain space than rock and whatever, where I love the like committing, like printing your effects, and there's something about it that reminds me of recording on 4-track tape and just like you just have to do it. You just have to perform, and something really fun about that.
Very first
One of these
project
days, man, I'm gonna pick an instrument and make a record using just that instrument. One of these days.
I highly recommend it.
This also makes me want to start working on guitar again. I got a bunch of guitars and I never sit down with them, but I think I need to start incorporating some guitar into my stuff too that I've done.
It's been so fun. I did not expect how much guitar. There's a ton of guitar on this record, and I didn't plan that going in. That just happened that, I'd usually have like a main sample or a bass line or both. And it just kind of seemed very natural, like, oh, what does this need? Like this song, you know, the little kind of reggae sort of upchucks, and then there's a little noodly, you know, lead line, and it working on the sampler brought completely different things out of my guitar playing than I've ever done in any other context. Like I'd never played a solo, like a real solo, until the previous song. I'm not much of a lead player. Like I'm a rhythm guitarist for the most part, but something about this, I guess maybe it's just having the pressure off of all you need is like, you just need the sample, right? You just need those 4 notes or those 6 seconds or whatever.
Yep.
And there's some of that. And then there's also some song like the time organ. There's a layer of guitar that like goes through the whole, I just played for 3 minutes, you know, and it's simple stuff and it's background stuff, but there's a layer that's just like all the way through. And that's really fun too.
Yeah, I mean, I like playing through. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Evan.
No, I was going to say that was just Farewell, My Lovely, right?
That was Farewell, My Lovely.
Okay.
Do you have any notes that you wanted to hit on it?
I was going to say the guitars are very Johnny Greenwood. And the whole vibe overall is very like early Tame Impala. Or maybe even like Couch. I don't know if you've heard of Couch. They're like the 90s/2000s version of Can. They're just a German experimental rock group.
Okay. So I need to, on my checkout list is going 07 and Couch.
Yeah.
Show notes. Yeah. I don't have, so Farewell, My Lovely, I don't have too much to say about it. It's my favorite, just like groove on the record. I could listen to that loop forever.
Yeah.
And the lyrics come from a Raymond Chandler novel. Corey, who raps on the next song, got me really into Raymond Chandler mystery novels last summer when I was working on a lot of this stuff and writing it. And so it's a total Raymond Chandler thing. All right, digital. Yeah. Oh man, we could talk so much Raymond Chandler if you want. Digital Sin. This is like the full-on hip-hop track featuring Van Ripper, aka Corey Kibler. Horns by Scott Morris. I will have 3 videos coming on the Mr. Furious channel, doing my kind of step-through format where I like play every individual sample and then the patterns and kind of talk about how it all got put together. And I did those for Time Organ, this song, Digital Sin, and Basement Champagne.
This song, have you heard 12 Ways to Die?
Not that I recall.
It's the live band Ghostface album that he does with Adrian Young.
Okay.
Who is the guy that did the soundtrack for Luke Cage, like the background soundtrack.
Yeah.
But he does full band instrumental hip hop. And he does, and another guy named L. Michaels. It's L. Michaels or L. Michelle, I forget. But L. Michaels Affair, he does Enter the 37th Chamber, which is just instrumental versions of the Wu-Tang, Enter the Wu-Tang.
All right.
And then just puts the vocals back over them. And that's the vibe I get from this song, is that like live instrumentation, hip hop, full band, like everybody's involved.
Yeah, and this was really, I don't remember where the drum samples came from. It'll be in the Mr. Furious video, but like bass line was live, guitar was live, horns, I mean, were live in the song that I sampled them from. So yeah, no sense in this song.
This is again going back to maybe some of that trip hop feel.
Yeah, kind of does.
I like that.
I love how Corey raps like back in his throat, kind of. That's a new timbre for him, and I really hope he'll do more of it.
Oh, just like more of a normal speaking voice?
Yeah, he's usually a little higher up, a little more in his head and like projecting, and yeah, I really love this.
I gotta give a shout out to my boy Joe. Man, I'm such a bag.
Joe man?
God damn, man. Why am I? Affluentious Joe, man. Joe McGuire.
Joe McGuire, yeah.
Yeah, those horns, man. They I think of him and some of his stuff that he produces and puts out. When I hear those horns, it's got that. Just maybe it's just because it's horns, but yeah, man, it's sort of rock steady reggae, Afrobeat type of stuff. But the horns, those horn lines are kind of reminding me of that.
Yeah, Joe's got a.
Sorry, Joe, man. I'm sorry, Joe. I forgot.
We got there.
I spaced, man. I don't know.
Joe was my next door neighbor when I first moved to Lawrence.
Man. Love. He's a bro, man. He's a bro.
Yeah, so. He was my next door neighbor when I first moved to Lawrence in 2000. So me and Joe, we go way back.
Man, that was the Jose PH days, man.
Jose PH and Random Happenings and that big house at 1301 Kentucky.
Yep.
Man, just so many house parties and jam sessions. Like I learned.
He was shirtless Joe. I was about to call him shirtless Joe if I could remember.
Yeah, but I worked with him at Papakino's.
Yep. Man.
Yeah, super old heads.
Yeah, that song was fresh, man. Howie.
That was super fresh.
I want to add, so the horns came, since we're talking about the horns, they came from an acoustic cover of Goldfinger's song Miles Away, which is a weird thing to do. Yeah.
Wow.
So I'll send it to you guys.
That's amazing.
So Scott and I, like early-ish pandemic, did like the stay-at-home acoustic, video on 2 screens kind of thing. And we did, I think, 6 of our old songs. And then if you buy the EP on Bandcamp, it's called An Evening at Home with Howie and Scott. Yep. We did this Miles Away cover because way back in the day, I mean, Ebony. So this is my first band was an acoustic duo that I started with my friend Scott in high school. I played acoustic guitar. He played saxophone, and we kept that going all through college. But we started off just doing covers and going to coffee shops and stuff. And then we got into writing our own music. But yeah, we would do like tons of punk covers, acoustic. And that was one of them. We loved Goldfinger, and like going to and from when we'd play and we'd be driving to Omaha or whatever, we listened to Goldfinger in the car constantly. Huge Goldfinger fans.
Are you talking about Goldfinger, the punk band, or Goldfinger, the Bond soundtrack? The
punk band.
Okay.
The punk band.
Because when you first said Goldfinger, I was like, wait, that's on the James Bond soundtrack?
Oh, no.
I think Dr. No and Sean Connery when I hear Goldfinger. I never think of the punk band, but they are.
Yeah, no, that's because you're classy. I think of the punk band. But yeah, Scott arranged this really cool, like semi-Latin kind of breakdown, and that's where I pulled the horns from. I was going to ask him to do something original, and I was like, let me take one swing at, going back to the baseball metaphor, let me take one swing at just pulling something. And I found it.
It definitely worked.
So, cool. Quick break. You guys don't go anywhere. Listeners will let you go. Side 2 next week. It's been the Long Play Listening Party. Frog on the King's Head is at MrFuriousRecords.bandcamp.com. And we'll see you next week.
Peace.